What's up, y'all? Sparta here. For this video, I want to finally talk about how to get the best experience out of the Sony Xperia 1 Mark III when it comes to its camera. Now, I feel like a lot of tech reviewers sit here and say that this phone just can't compete because it doesn't do it doesn't hold your hand in every single situation possible like other phones do, like say a Samsung phone or an iPhone. It doesn't do it in it doesn't aid you in those ways. But I do want to talk about the ways that I feel like you can get the most out of this phone and not necessarily have to worry about being intimidated. So obviously, I guess I'll just talk about the specs of the cameras here. You have I believe it's an 8 megapixel camera up front. No, really, don't really care about that. It's not some spam call. It's a spam call anyway. No one really uses that. It only does 1080p 30 video. I did a selfie camera video review a while back when I first got the phone. It looks fine. It looks fine. It's just not for me personally. So it's just something that you'll either take or leave. You have a triple 12 megapixel camera set up on the back with your time of flight sensor on the back for your eye autofocusing. The telephoto is a dual stage telephoto lens. So what does that mean? It means it has two different optical focal lengths. It's the 70 and 105. But in each focal length, you will get to go into their up to what the next focal length is. So you have a digital crop up to 70 on the main lens. You go to 70. Obviously, I'm super close. So this would be something that is going to be nice if you want to do something like macro and you don't necessarily want to use the zoom lens. You can digital crop to 70 and still be able to focus pretty damn well. You have an f1.7 lens, obviously, with the main lens. On the ultra wide, it's f2.2. And what I like about what Sony does is, since they do make it look more like a camera, they do tell you these things down here as well. You have your 70 mil was a f2.3, and f2.8 is your 105. That digital crops all the way to 300. So that's something that's very nice overall. And I feel like Sony did a very good job at making a phone that does some unique things. And while I don't necessarily think the telephoto excels at anything like, say, you want to get a moon shot like what you would get on like an S20, what you'd be able to do with the space zoom on the S21 Ultra or S22 Ultra, you can't really do that here all that well. But it is something that is indeed there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to obviously bring you guys through the modes you have. You have basic mode, which makes it look like every other camera app on the phone. And it literally tells you right here what you can expect. And it does that for every mode. You have your auto mode, which does fully auto everything, so you don't get any exposure control, nothing like that. You can still make RAWs. You can still do RAWs and all that stuff if you want that, but overall, this is overall what you get. You get your auto focusing. This allows you to turn face eye autofocus on or off. You have your focus areas. You can do center or a wide. You have your continuous autofocus, your single autofocus, or your manual focus, which, as you guys can see, is grayed out. You don't get it in the regular auto mode. And you have your drive mode, so your shooting modes. You have your single shooting, continuous high, continuous low, self timer, 10 seconds, self timer 3 seconds. So that's nice. And then you get your flash options here. Fill flash is definitely the best out of here. But if you have issues with red eyes and stuff like that, the red eye reduction might help. I typically don't use the flash. I typically don't use the flash, so it's not something that I can fully comment on. But it's definitely a nice feature to have. So this is what you guys see here, and let me turn that back off. And you get your aspect ratio. So you get 12 megapixels and 4:3. Every phone does this. This isn't just what Sony is doing. Every phone has a native resolution that the camera will stay at when it comes to its cropping. So if your aspect ratio is 4:3, which is the natural aspect ratio of the lens, obviously is going to stay at 12 megapixels. If you're fine with 9 megapixels, you could do 16:9. Same with 1:1, and 3:2 is 10 megapixels. So you don't really compromise all that much in terms of resolution, no matter which of these you go with. So that's actually pretty nice. Really no issue there whatsoever. Display turns your histogram or your metering and all this stuff off. So you hit display right here. So it'll turn histogram, your meter right there, and your information up top, which I can't really get it to focus on that because of the light. But as you guys can see, it says 12 megapixels, 183 gigabytes left in the phone, JPEG, and it has your battery percentage right up there as well. And what you guys will be able to see up here is that maybe let me apologies. You'll be able to see that it's switching to different modes right there. So if you see a candle, that's night mode. If you see a flower, that's macro mode, things like that. It automatically does that in all of these, in either auto mode or program auto mode. And since I showed you guys what basically every other thing does here that you're able to use, like you're not able to adjust your dynamic range or your, what is that actually? Let me check. Oh, your metering mode. You can't adjust your metering mode or your you can't adjust your metering mode or your dynamic range in auto mode. In program auto mode, all but your exposure can be adjusted, but obviously it can be adjusted. It's just right here. You don't really have to worry about touching this at all, where it has the plus and minus, which is your exposure value. You just lower it and raise it right here. Very easy, very simple. And this is where you get the opportunity to utilize something like the manual autofocus. So you go here, or your manual focus, not manual autofocus. And as you guys can see, the moment I do MF, this goes down here. And you can slide it to get in and out of focus. Now I wish what this phone had was some sort of focus peaking. That would have been nice, as well as some like manual vibration haptic feedback when you're sliding this, because otherwise you don't necessarily know if you're touching it. That's something that I do hope Sony will address in something like, say, the One Mark IV, or even in an update they can probably do it, but that's just something that I'm showing you right here. You have shutter speed priority. This is mainly for things if you want to do like astrophotography, or you want to do like you're over a highway and you want to get those streak lights that you would typically get. This is the kind of mode you would go with. This is basically for your night photography. Manual exposure, get to adjust the exposure, and memory recall. This basically just always has the most recent settings that you always utilize. So let me go into the settings here and show you guys a couple things as well. So as you guys can see, the drive mode and all this stuff is still here. You have your zoom settings, your AI super resolution zoom. So what this does is it does do some auto processing in the background to add some sharpness to you. It literally tells you what it does right here. So based on the image sensor data, AI super resolution zoom using digital processing that preserves more of the original image quality. So it doesn't sharpen anything. It just does a way better job at making sure that the photo that you see in the viewfinder, when it comes to your telephoto, looks more like what it looked like in the viewfinder when you take the picture. That's something that I do tend to have an issue with Samsung phones, where in the viewfinder the photo will look one way, but the moment I take the picture it looks an entirely different way. And what this kind of thing does is it makes it to where you don't really have to worry about that, and it's very nice and it works very well. I will advise you though, if you do go into continuous shooting, it will automatically go back to digital zoom, which is totally fine. I did a couple test shots of it, and while yes, the super resolution zoom does look better, I wouldn't say it's better to the point where I would say you'd be wanting to use that over the regular digital zoom. You have your exposure settings right here. So D-range optimizer, you have your soft skin effect, which obviously I turn off. You have your metering modes, your focus modes right here. You can change all this stuff. Then you have your setup, and you can change what you want the tap to focus to be. So if you want your tap to focus to be you changing your autofocus, you want it to change your focus and brightness, so you want to change object tracking, that's what this is for right here. Display button customization, as you guys can see here, you can customize it to have either the histogram level, one or the other, all three. You could just change it to do any of those, and that's actually pretty nice. Audio signals, I don't really hear those, so it's basically your shutter sound. Your storage, when you're, oh, I guess I can't. When you're shooting in, I forget what, I think when you're shooting in continuous, you can't save them to the SD card. It only saves to the internal storage, so just keep that in mind. Which does kind of suck, but due to the fact that this phone is a 512 gigabyte variant, it doesn't really matter to me. You can choose what you want your camera key to do. It literally is launch photography pro or turn off, so pick and choose what you want there. Your mode dial guide, that's literally this, and it telling you what each mode does. That's what the mode dial guide is. Save location, which is basically just saving your location into the metadata of the photo, like where you are. It keeps your last used mode in memory, so you could do that, or you could have it to always be in basic mode if you want. Say if you're someone that doesn't really want to mess with the rest of the camera, which I don't know why you'd get this phone if you don't want to mess with the camera, you could just have it always go to auto mode, and I guess I could show you guys what that looks like right here. Do that. We go back, and a nice thing is that no matter what, the camera always automatically closes itself. You don't have to worry about going into your recent apps and manually closing it. So I go back into that, and as you guys can see, it goes into basic mode, and all you have to do is go to whichever mode you want. Now, due to the fact that I don't use basic mode, I'm going back to last used, and that's just nice right there. Bluetooth remote control, you can do that. You can do transfer and tagging, add-on mode, whatever the hell that is, I don't know. Now, I will tell you one thing. If you want to do stuff like scan QR codes and stuff like that, you have to go into the basic mode. That's the only way that you're going to be able to scan QR codes. So just keep that in mind. A lot of reviewers, a lot of places don't really talk about that. So in terms of having that and wanting to do that, you're going to have to go into the basic mode if you want to use something like that, which is fine, not necessarily a big deal in the world, but if that's that way you don't have to download a whole entirely separate QR code scanning app. It's still right in the phone. You just have to go into the basic mode and able to get it. So what I'm going to show you guys here is a couple of photos that I took with things like the telephoto, things like that. So keep in mind, I only do this in program auto. I don't go into the deep settings or anything like that. I don't do anything fancy. I'm in full auto mode, program auto mode, and that's how I've been using this phone almost exclusively, pretty much exclusively. So now this is from the telephoto, and apologies. I'm using my G7 and it has a scratch on on the main lens, the lens is scratched on the main sensor, so you're gonna have to bear with me a little bit. But as you guys can see, there's a very good amount of detail right here. Very nice. Really don't have any sort of issue with how these look. Taking a lot of flower shots and whatnot. Sometimes I'm gonna have to refocus. This is with the telephoto. It does a very good job at subject separation, and with the auto mode you do get things like a portrait mode, because obviously this isn't going to be a direct from a f2.8 aperture lens. So Sony is doing a little bit of processing and doing a little bit of fun stuff there. So if that's something you did worry about, I'd probably advise you not to worry about it all that much. Here's me trying to get some sort of moonshot. It's all right, but it's nowhere near on the level of something like a S21 Ultra. So here's a couple more instances of me doing this. Now, pretty damn well detailed. And this is where I'll give you guys the example of what I mean by, since this was in continuous shot mode, I got 3 different photos, right? They all pretty much look the same, but as you guys can see, it's a little soft in the middle, right? And that kind of makes sense. Now, I go here. This is with the AI super resolution zoom, and as you guys can see, it's just a singular photo right here. I zoom in, you get far more detail. You get way more detail right there. And that's very nice. It's softer here. You get more detail there. And here's another one. This camera's really nice. The dual stage telephoto on this phone is really nice indeed. I really do like it a lot. I feel like a lot of people overlook it because, oh, it doesn't do a maximum zoom of 100x, but this is a more photographic, wanting to, you know, get a very nice shot out of your phone type of deal. And I feel like Sony does a very good job at not being heavy-handed with its processing. The photos look very natural. They don't look like they came out of they really don't look like they came out of a smartphone, which I feel like is very nice. I'll show you guys a couple more here. And I feel like this was the same deal. Oh yeah. So as you guys can see, continuous, as you guys can see, it's a little blurry right there. I go into AI super resolution. Look at how insane that is, man. Like this is on a phone. And it may look punched up because the G7 is obviously doing its own processing, but I'll tell you, I advise you guys, I'm telling you guys right now, I will upload these to my community tab just so you guys can see some of these. The telephoto on this phone is very good. You just have to know what to do with it, and you have to know what to expect out of it. You can't just expect to do everything you would be able to do on an S21 Ultra or Note 22, because that's just not what you're going to get out of this. You're going to be disappointed if you think that's what you're going to get out of this phone. But in terms of the overall feel, the overall usage of it, I feel like the camera on this phone is very nice, very detailed. I don't really have any sort of issues with it. The only gripes is sometimes I do wish that it was was definitely higher resolution. Like, it had an overall larger and higher megapixel count camera, but mainly I just wanted to have a larger sensor size, just so this can be more just so it could be more competitive in things like night modes and stuff like that. But here's another one where I took a picture of my homie's lizard, and apologies, it's not the phone that's not focusing. And it's just crazy, man. Like, there's really nothing about this camera to me that screams this is bad at all. Like, the telephoto, which is the one that a lot of people have been wondering about, is very good. When it comes to things like the main sensor right here, a good amount of bokeh, really no problem there. Good, it doesn't focus fall off on anything harsh when it comes to the thing that I want in focus. It doesn't take my thumb out of focus or anything like that. It properly gets what I want in focus and out of focus, and that's very nice. A lot of phones these days, especially with these larger sensors, still kind of have issues with that, and I feel like Sony has pretty much become the master of the 12 megapixel sensor, and you can kind of see that when it comes to the One Mark IV, where they're going all crazy with that goddamn phone and this 12 megapixel camera. But anyway, that's all I really wanted to say when it comes to this. This phone is very good. The camera is very nice. I hope what I put out here helps a lot of people when it comes to this phone figure out what this camera does and what you can expect out of each and every mode. It's very much an acquired taste, but I feel like the One Mark III in the right hands can be a very versatile tool for a lot of people. This is Sparta. Thanks for watching. Thanks for support. Hope you guys have a wonderful, was it Wednesday already? Yeah, Wednesday, whatever time of day it is in the area. Like the video if you like it, share with people that are interested in this sort of content, and have a good one.